Hello, this is Dr Helen Weberly. Welcome to our GenderGP podcast, where we will be discussing some of the issues affecting the trans and non-binary community in the world today, together with my co-host, Marianne Oakes, a trans woman herself, and our head of therapies. This is the first of our series on young people and bringing to life some of our younger trans members of the trans community who've been gracious and generous enough to give us their time to tell you what it means to them to be trans and how it's affected their life in good ways or maybe some bad ways, maybe how it's affected their families. So really excited to welcome Arthur and his mum today. So Arthur, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to throw you right in at the deep end and say, tell us all about you and your mum. Hi, Mum.
Oh. Well, it's been fine, hasn't it? Well, I do karate.
14.
I'm 13. 14. September.
We just asked earlier on, how old were you when you remember being trans? And you just said, I've always been. And that's about right. Yeah. So, it was so long ago, because how old were you when you identified? About 7. 6 or 7 years old when Arthur drew a picture and tried. We didn't have the word. He obviously didn't have the words, and we didn't know the terminology either, did we? Or anything.
No, I didn't.
And he drew pictures, and so he was about 7. So we've been in services since then. So it's been it's everything since we came with yourselves. The stress has been. It's gone, hasn't it? So
yeah.
Kind of what about being trans? And he's just Arthur, aren't you?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But
can I just ask, what was your journey to finding GenderGP, if that's not too big a question? It sounds like it was with the NHS before that.
Yes.
But
mermaids.
Yeah. Well, I got my hormone blocker when I was in the NHS, but
you were 9.5,
yeah,
weren't you?
Yeah.
It was a bit of a battle to get it, though.
Yeah, and then I wanted testosterone. And, well, I needed it, I believed. And then, but I couldn't, how old would you have to be in the NHS? Older. 15, 16. So, and then
you was panic-stricken, weren't you?
Yeah.
About getting that. And we sort of, but no, we found out about GenderGP. We met Helen, actually, at one of the mermaids residentials. And the mermaids were fantastic in the early days, weren't they? We haven't been for a few years, but we're just saying I think we're ready to check back in with them because I think he's ready to find out more information about the older stuff coming up in the next few years and questions with other teenagers. So I think we'll check in with them again soon because we haven't for the past few years because it always coincides with his karate. But we were just saying, we were just talking about some of the young people when you were young, about some of the non-binary people and about different people's circumstances. Because we don't often talk about trans stuff anymore, do we? We don't need to. We're lucky we don't really need to. Because I think everything's in place and Arthur's just a little bit blasé about it all. But no, we met Helen when we went to one of the residentials. And all I got from a 9-year-old boy was when he picked him up, have you rang GenderGP? Have you rang Norman Stark? When are we going to America? When are we going to? And me and Dad were just thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to have to remortgage the house. But yes, and it was always the case. I think from being single, he didn't know that much about stuff, but he just always knew he wanted to go private because that was the way to go. And because we were lucky to meet some other young people, weren't we? With like 18, 19, 20-year-old that had been to America, and they were amazing. You know, they looked amazing. Yeah. He just thought us what they looked like. They looked and they were fantastic young people. They were great role models to see. And it was like, well, I'm going to be like that. And but for a very young age, he was really conscious and worked out from being like 8, 9-year-old. Always swam. He was in a swimming club as well before that. Always swam. Always competitively as a boy. And school were very good. We never had any problems with school. I mean, we just kind of.
Camps is good stuff.
You went to camps. They came to the house for a few times, didn't they? We only had about 8 sessions with CAMS, and they came to the house. And then they just stopped coming after it. They said they didn't need to come because it was fine, which was great. We were lucky that we didn't need that. And that's it really. And then we got sort of, but the panic that we had before we got to yourselves was massive, I've got to say, for myself. And you just were very demanding, wanting it.
I was fine.
And the minute we got to GenderGP, our medications and things have gone in place, and I can just breathe a big sigh of relief to say I can be who I am now. So we don't have any worry, just the usual I want as a teenager.
Also, I was going to ask you, I'm just interested. So you came out, you say that you kind of knew what it was all about when you were 7, or realised something was there at 7, but didn't know what it was. And then you're going on to blockers at 9.5 on the NHS. So how did that come about? What did you have to do to get blockers?
Well, yeah, go to what was meetings. So
You had to be diagnosed.
I had to be diagnosed, and then didn't have to be two. I go to like meetings. What's it called?
You had to see counsellor.
See counselling for about 2 years, and then
Then you had to go to London to see the
London,
the medical side of it,
and then I got hormone.
But we went to he was concerned that he was breastbudding, weren't you? So we ended up getting a private appointment to make sure that he was breastbudding and he was at the right tanner stage, which we paid for at home, and then it came back that he was beginning to breastbud. So we had that, and then they referred us to London to see the medics there, and then he was diagnosed. So he got his blockers at 9.5. I think he was the youngest. Yeah, said he was the youngest child, and he was so relieved. Sort of, weren't you? Yeah. And then because all he had was looking in his chest, and his chest's beautiful, and he's very proud of his chest, aren't you? He's always got it out. So he should be. He's not going to need top surgery. But yeah, and so we got that, and then it was that was a bit of a sigh of relief. And then we'd been to the residential, and then the next move was trying to get to yourselves. Yeah. Yeah. We were at the same time, we were looking at Germany and we were looking at America. But financially, we really couldn't have maintained it. We could have, we would have tried our hardest. We really would have, because we needed to. But luckily, GenderGP came around, so it was. Then we went to yourselves, didn't we? And then, and he's just thrilled when we came to our appointment. We were just done about that. We were on this crazy car mission in My Little Panda from the northeast to yourselves in Wales. We went to a skate park, didn't we? Yeah. We went to some skate park. We saw Mike, and what a different experience that was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was nice, wasn't it? Nice. And then we came home, and it was just like a big relief, and we've never looked back really. Now everything's just on the calendar, and Arthur comes in and you'll say your blockers here and this is there, and have you put your tea on, and that's about all we do, and it's fantastic actually, isn't it? Yeah. And I've just been talking, I'm saying, what about school and things? And
just school, isn't it?
Great. You don't have any, Arthur's not stealthy, everybody knows, and don't make a big deal of it at all, do we? So sort of, you don't. And I've never had any problems, have you?
Not really, no.
So,
what about? Go on, Marianne. Sorry, after you.
I was just going to clarify. So you're saying that everybody at school knows about your trans identity?
Yeah, basically. About my year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you're cool with that as well. Just looking at it, smiling and talking.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
I just asked him earlier, and he goes, yeah, well, I know what they'll get. I said, pardon. But no, I thought, because I think when we were in primary, we moved primary schools, didn't we? And somebody said they knew his secret, and I think that was a big turning point. And I remember being really upset about being stayed up all night. You should contact us, their mum. And I was like, no. And I said, is there anything wrong with you? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, there you are. You're perfect in every way. So you stand to be counted for. And I think, and that was the best thing that we ever did, and I did, because I just worried as a parent. And you just faced it. It was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. So he's, No problems, is there?
No.
What about your karate? Tell me about your karate, Arthur, because that was when I said tell us all about you. The first word that came out of your mouth was karate.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a big thing for you. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I started like 6-ish, wasn't it? And then just doing it like, well, I did it. I've done it till now. I've done it like about, but now it's quite serious now, isn't it? Like every day. But I enjoy it.
Selected for the British squad.
Oh yeah, I got in the British squad. Thank
Did you? Did you?
Yeah.
So,
in January.
In January.
How did you do? How did that happen? How did you get onto the British squad?
Wait, I have to be 13 to get on the British squad. And then you get picked from the British squad to go away to represent Britain. Yeah,
Very cool.
To do, because this year was going to be Moscow, wasn't it?
He's for about 3 years. He's been in the development squad for about 3 years.
Yeah, for my club, and then I got picked from my club squad to go to try out for the British squad, and then I got in because like you got picked out of like a lot of people who so you fought someone and then they just looked at you and they did training and then they looked at what we did,
see if you got potential,
and then they just chose me. Yeah.
I was just going to say, what does that mean now, Arthur? So do you have to go away from home and do competitions, or is it still in your local area?
Just do both. So we already went to Leicester and stuff in Liverpool. We do that quite often. And
youth nationals
and stuff like that. But then like once a year-ish.
Twice, but because of the lockdown, there hasn't been any. So
there's not twice a year. You get like it's like a bigger competition. It's because I do nationals and the national competition.
The
Northern. There's loads.
It does about 80,
yeah, it is. But then you get picked from the British squad to go away. So like with people from like other countries, like so it'd be from best from Britain, wouldn't it? And then the best from Spain maybe, or something like that, and then they all meet.
You go in the team. They pick the KUGB pick a selection of certain age groups to represent England in ESCA and stuff. But I don't think it's going to happen this year, is it?
No, because of Corona.
No, but he's still training, aren't you? We're still doing training online every day. It's just gone to outside, hasn't it?
Yeah, outside training.
So is it a gender segregated sport, or does it not matter what gender you are?
Yeah, but I just compete in the boys. Yeah.
Always hasn't.
Yeah.
You really.
Well, it's the both genders for like kata, which is just moves, and then your kumite, which is what I do. It's like fighting. You do with your gender, male or female, because
an age group.
Yeah, in age, and that's it. So like I compete in 13 to 16, but then I go 5'5" and over because I'm 5'5". So there's quite a few tall ones, but it's all right. Yeah, it's just gone over 5'5", so I'm in the taller category this time. So not well.
He was panicking the last time we went last year because he'd just gone over to the last one, didn't he? We were 5 foot.
Because I just turned 13, and then so I was 5'5" under, wasn't I? And then but that was fine because it was different people, isn't it? Because I was in a different category, and then bigger category now.
But he's over the moon. He's grown lately. He's had a bit of a growth spurt, so he's thrilled. I think it's lockdown because he's never stopped eating.
So have you got siblings? Have you got brothers and sisters and family? And how?
The sister. I've got a sister and cousins and aunties.
You have an amazing father.
Yeah.
Little sister, haven't you?
Yeah.
Pity. She's 7.
And what about your family, Arthur? It strikes me that your trans identity doesn't really seem to be a part of any of your life at the moment. You're just Arthur, and that's your mum, and that's your dad, and that's your sister, and there's your auntie, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Does it crop up at all? I mean, if if you look at the newspapers and you look at things on, on the internet and what have you, there are so many families that have such difficulty with people trying to understand it. Have you had any difficulties like that, or?
Well, at the start, it was a bit. Well, it wasn't difficult. It was just a bit funny to get
for all of us, wasn't it?
For everyone, yeah. But well, not for me. But I think everyone was fine after like a year
about
of it,
a year.
about a year, and then it was just Arthur.
Dad found it hard, didn't he? Dad out of everybody. I think when we used to go for the counselling, we used to call it Dad's counselling session. Because it was hard for us as parents. It was us that he knew who he was. It was us that need to understand it, to support him, and as time's gone on, we've learned it's not an issue anymore. We shouldn't make an issue, but you couldn't help it at the time because it was such a big thing. And you would look at him and think about stuff constantly, about what he wore, what he looked like, what he wanted, and you worried about what other people would say. And although you didn't want to make an issue, sometimes you did. And I think we were lucky that he was small because we got away with it. But I think if he was a teenager, that must be so hard because sometimes you can't do right for doing wrong. But no, we've always been okay, haven't we?
Yeah.
School was good, man. School was good.
We researched everything loads, and we went to mermaids and we met different families, and it was meeting other people that helped the most. And then, like I say, sort of stepped out of it because we didn't need it. I remember when we asked, because we used to go to the residential, do you want to go? And he was like, no, I'm too busy. It was just like, and I thought, yeah, it was a breath of fresh air. It was like, wow, we can leave this, and we have for some time now, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
and
normal stuff.
Yeah.
So you say your dad found it hard, did he, Arthur?
Well, yeah. No.
He did, didn't he? He cried, he broke down, didn't he, a few times, and which was really hard because he's not that kind of man. And it was kind of, I remember him saying that he thought that he felt that he was grieving.
Yeah.
He felt that he'd lost his daughter, and sort of, and that was really, really hard. But luckily, we used to go to Leeds, so it was like we drove there, then we all used to go get something to eat and have a laugh and have a treat afterwards, didn't we? But we needed that. We needed that time. David needed that time. Dad needed it, didn't he? Yeah. And I did as well. And as a family, we needed it a little bit. But and then everything's just slipped into place, hasn't it? Dad wouldn't go to residential, so would he? So he wouldn't go.
That's girly stuff. So if you had to give advice to another dad out there at the moment, or another mum who was struggling, who's a few years behind you now, like what would you say to them while they were still doing that grief bit? Because we hear it a lot, don't we? That it is like a loss. I mean, Marianne, I'm sure you will have something to say as well afterwards. But what would you say to other mums and dads out there who are finding it tricky?
Well, I'd just say, I wouldn't say don't care, but I mean, just like get on with it. I mean, it's just
support.
Yeah, support and
listen.
Yeah, just listen. Because for me, I just didn't really want. I just wanted to be Arthur, and that was it. You know what I mean? I didn't really want to think about how I was a girl or anything. Yeah.
I can see from your
Just
face, it's almost like you're saying, look, don't worry about me, I'm going to be fine. You're doing the worrying, but leave it, I'm fine, I'm going to be fine, just let me be Arthur and I'll be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted, and he didn't like us overthinking and overthink. I used to research things and then write a list, and when he come in, I'd go, look at this, and he wouldn't be interested, and he would back right. It was like, right, and we had to learn to back off and stop worrying, and things were okay, and they were okay, and we were possibly making issues at one point, weren't we? Because I think that we used to push it a little bit, and let him be who he wants to be, and that was because we went through funny haircut clothes and stuff, and it was like, yeah, you've got to just let it go, and which we did. But it takes some time as a parent to do that because you want to protect them.
Yeah.
You said something earlier, which is struck a chord. You said you felt if Arthur had been older coming out and he'd have had to witness the struggles that you and your husband had, that could have been more damaging. But because Arthur was younger, that you've all kind of got through it and you've arrived at this place where it's just Arthur now.
Not just medically. I mean, it's fantastic that he's been able to develop like his peers, because that's what he strove to be. And I think we would have had huge problems then. But older, like I say, when he was little, I used to research stuff and try and push things when he came in. Oh, look at this. Shall we do that? What about this? Have you read this? Look at these words. You know, you might be able to explain it more and how you feel. And as a little one, he was able to just say, no, mum. But as a teenager, I can't imagine it would go up, wouldn't it? You'd be having things hurled at you. Sort of. And you can hurt their feelings so much more, can't you, when they're older? And I think it was hard enough when he was little, and because he used to be hurt by, and it didn't take that long for the wrong name, but because he wrote a list of names. He wrote a list of about 10 names, didn't you? Straight away when we identified, he wrote these little pictures of a man and a woman, and he said he was neither one nor the other. And he knew he wasn't the girl, and he wanted to be that, but he couldn't be that. And that was when he was 7. But he was very upset. He couldn't talk. I thought there was something wrong with him. And then when we talked around, we said, well, yes, you can be. And I remember when he went to bed, he said, but you can't make this right, Mum. And I said, oh, but we can. And coming up to Christmas, and straight away he wrote a list of all these names, didn't you? So we tried a couple of names, and even the names are spoilt it, because I said, and Dad, because he was called Poppy, and when he was born, and he what did you pick? Arthur was on the list. No, Billy. We tried Billy because it was nearest to Bobby, and it was us that manipulated that. And we were thinking of other people. We were thinking that it was easier for people to be able to move from that. I don't know why, Billy, because it's not at all right, is it? But I'd bought stuff for Christmas, and I'd wrapped up when Santa came that year. There was all these presents with different names on, and then we finally came to Arthur, and it was because we didn't like Arthur. And in the end, we just said, oh, be Arthur. And it was the most perfect thing. It was right. He was right all along that it should have been Arthur. But I remember that Christmas was quite special, and Santa left a note, didn't he? Saying, I'm sorry that it was, but you kept changing your mind, and I'm so glad you've made up your mind, because it was like 3 lots of presents with lots of piles of presents with different names on. But I think we learned and we didn't hurt, and our relationship wasn't pushed to the limits because he was younger, because it was a learning curve mainly for us. To accept him and to let him move at the way he wanted, at his pace, and we were trying to make it easier for everybody in the outside world, really, and for us to try and protect him, but we were making things worse. Till we kind of backed off a little bit. But I think we were lucky that you were younger, because it was a lot easier. Very lucky.
Yeah.
Marianne, in your work with young people and families, how often is it that the work needs to be done with mum and dad to help them through it, and the kid knows who they are and what they are?
This isn't the first time I've said this, as you will well know, but I sit either online or in the therapy room, and these poor children are pushed in front of me because the parents say they need counselling, and actually it's the parents that need the counselling. And a little bit I'm how can I say, smiling, listening to you talk, because you're saying, I think the best advice you could give to any parents is go and sort yourselves out. If your child is confident, don't make them not confident because you're not. And, the times I just think, I just wish the parents were here now and not the child, because the child's getting on okay. But the parents' anxieties start rubbing off on the child, and I think that's what you're alluding to. And you say, if Arthur was a bit older, it could have been more damaging. Your fears could have been more damaging to Arthur. So, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Most definitely. And I think it could end up, really breaking down relationships massively. I can imagine as a teenager, because he's cheeky now. So if coming at that stage now and of all that confusion, wow, you'd be at loggerheads, wouldn't you? You'd be fighting, I would have thought, and arguing, and that's not where you want to be.
But
Go on, Marianne.
I was just going to say, I have seen young people that are just determined to leave home. They've kind of tuned out from the parents at a quite too younger age, and it's sad for everybody then. And you're right. And if only there was a magic formula just to say that if your child comes out as trans, if you tick these boxes, everything will be fine. But there isn't. And
no,
the process that everybody's going through, if it's not recognised, can be damaging. Hence, I promote counselling to everybody.
Whether it's the mum or the dad or the child, doesn't matter.
Just one last thing, if I may, just share. Yeah, sure. I did have a father come to see me in Wilmslow, where I do face-to-face, and he'd been off work, and work had said they'd pay for some counselling, and it just so happened that they'd got a trans boy child, and he was the perfect father. He'd never broken down. He'd never, he'd just been really proactive and supportive. And the child had been transitioned 2 years with the help of GenderGP and was starting to thrive like Arthur. Mm-hmm. And the dad just had all this emotional stuff. And when he came to see me, the one thing that came out was he said, "I'm smiling, but I'm not happy. And I can't tell my child I'm not happy." And through the counselling, he was able to say everything. And then 6 weeks later, he was where he needed to be. So, I thought, what a brave man to come and admit that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It was shocking when it broke down, wasn't it? It was really shocking because it just came from nowhere, didn't it? And it was, and even David, but it was always, we always got a little bit disappointed in the sessions, didn't we? Because it was always, it was never very supportive. It was just, you'll have to wait. And they were always a little bit questioning of everything about him, really. And there was never really anything positive to grab hold onto. Our counselling session was all of us in the car on the way home to Leeds, talking about what had happened, wasn't it? And about how we felt. Yeah. And he was able to accept Arthur, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He did anyway, didn't he? Yeah. But he just couldn't. I think he found it hard. David found it very hard telling other people. But he's great now, and Granddad's 80-odd-year-old, and he's got all of it now, hasn't he? Yeah. But
it's all good. It's the grown-ups sometimes that get worried, isn't it? And everyone else the youngsters are fine, and it's the big grown-ups that are worried. I'm going to take you back, Mum, to when you were talking a minute ago about you're so lucky that you was younger and not a teenager. And it is really hard. I mean, I've had teenage kids. Marianne's had teenage kids. You've got a teenage kid, and it's hard, isn't it? Bringing up teenage kids is difficult enough as it is, but then to not know whether the tantrum is about being a teenager or whether the tantrum is about being trans or whatever else the big life issue is for them at the moment. It's hard, isn't it? And I've often heard mums say that, and they don't know if this is just normal teenager or because they're trans and struggling with that. It's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I kind of decided this about a year ago. I've said I'm not making excuses anymore because you're trans. And at the end of the day, because I think he was always put on it. I've always been very protective of him. And it was like, I've been awful in the house, but I have said, just because you're trans doesn't mean you can behave like that. And at the end of the day, it's got nothing to do with it. And we're not going to make, and I'm not going to make any issues, because I think he has pulled a few strings about it to manipulate. Maybe getting a few things that he wants, or
you wouldn't do that, would you? You wouldn't do that.
That's gone now. That is gone now. And I'm not jumping for it no more. So
well, I'm on
there's nothing
side.
We're on Arthur's side.
We've got to be able to pull that card now and then.
Yeah. And what about go on.
He used to have, it was before he started UT, wasn't it? When he was on blockers, his mood started to drop. And that was quite hard. That was really hard for me to watch. And then when you're starting to research, think, oh my goodness, he's going through all of these symptoms, is he? And because he just sat and he had a few tears, and he doesn't cry very often. He's a bit of a toughie. And he says, oh, Mum, I just don't know how I feel. And he says, there's nothing wrong, but I just feel crap, awful. And so we started looking at his blocker. And that was awful to see, and that was really awful to see. And asking, and I kept asking constantly, "Are you happy with this? Are you happy with that? Are you, And it was nothing. There was nothing. There was no answer. But things did pick up massively when you started T, and you don't have any mood swings at all now, do you? With your blocker?
No.
Because you could see it. You could see the mood swings, and I used to write it on the calendar. If to try and identify what was happening with the blocker, to see if his mood was dropping, because he seemed very quiet. And that was just going into comprehensive school as well. So that was a big moving point. So I was worried about comprehensive school and whether that was going to change. And with him being trans, was there going to be any problems? And was there going to be any bullying? Was there going to be any issues? And there wasn't. And then but his moods and his body, and I think where he's changed with his confidence has gone a lot from starting T, because he did used to be I couldn't explain it, he was a bit like a robot. He was very robotic. He wasn't able to express any emotions much when he was on blocker, just blocker. He didn't have any. You could say he was wanting this really expensive scooter, and it was the highlight of his life. And I remember we got it, and there was just nothing. And I said, "See, and he was like, oh, Mum, I love it. I just can't. Not able to express even how he felt about it. It was odd, wasn't it?" He was very adamant that he was going to America, Helen, after meeting the mermaids. It was just in his, without idea of cost or how he would do it or anything. It was just, well, we can do that. We'll go there. It's not a problem.
Swim over.
Yeah, it was a bit like that.
Did anyone tell you along the way that Arthur would grow out of this? Just give it some time and you'll grow out of this and everything will be okay. Did you ever get that?
I'm trying to think, did they? Yes, yeah, we did. I mean, well, I think they still said that on my last appointment when we stopped going. They said he was too young to have to make up his own mind. He was far too young to make up his own mind, and he couldn't make these really strong decisions at that. Although we've been going for years, we've been going for about 2.5 years. And that was in my final letter that I got from the Tavistock, that Arthur was too young to make these massive decisions about his life and about who he was, which I didn't believe. Like I said, I just asked Arthur because I used to get angry. I used to get upset when we went to these appointments. I mean, although it was good as a family initially, because it brought us together as a family and accepted Arthur initially. But then as things went on, I found it really frustrating and angry because it was just negative all of the time, and really, really negative. There was nothing to grab onto. There was nothing to hold, to keep going for. It was awful. But Arthur, you just said he just ignored it, which I think he did. I just asked him early before we came on. I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I just didn't used to listen," and I don't think he did. He was able to block out because he's always been very channeled about, I will get this. I will get this and everything will be fine. And it was, right, okay. But it affected me massively. I used to get really upset about it. And I remember that I've still got the letters because I kept everything. And the first letter I got in the first appointment, he was about 7.5, he might not have been 8. And it said to watch a film about, what's it called, Only Boys Cry, or it's tragic. I've never even watched it through yet. And that was in the formal things from the Tavistock, and I can't believe that was in there. And we got to the point where we just didn't get a lot from it, did we? It was just a constant, whatever Arthur said, it was, well, you'll have to wait, and you do know that you've got a long time to go. And even when we went for the bloods, when we used to go for the bloods, he used to say that to you. But he used to come out and go, "I don't think so."
And the other question that lots of people always ask, and not at the Tavistock, but people on social media and people who've never met a real life trans person, they'll just say, children cannot make decisions like this. They are too young. So what would you say to them, Arthur? If someone said that to someone like you about their child, what would you say to them?
Just say, look at me. I mean, if I was a little girl, I just wouldn't be. I've obviously made the decision on my own, and if I didn't do that, I think I'd be very sad, and I don't really know what I'd actually do, to be honest. And if I wasn't a boy, I can't see myself not being one, to be honest.
No.
And if someone said something like that, I can't get my head around it, to be truthfully honest. I can make my own decisions. And I know some people might think, oh, you're unsure or something. Well, some people could be unsure, but I've had all that counselling 2 years. I'm not going to change my mind after that. Yeah.
And Marianne, what do you think? We see and hear it so often, don't you? And then what you're presented with here is just someone who absolutely knows who they are, and we've got the rest of the world worrying about it. Apart from one person, and that's that young lad there.
Yeah.
We're gender affirming in our approach, and what that means is we believe the patient. The point of the exercise is not to disbelieve the patient; it's to help them to manage their journey on their terms. And I don't care whether they're 9 or whether they're 90. My experience of gender is that it's you said something before, Arthur. You made the decisions. I don't think we do make a decision to be trans. The only decisions we've got is how hard we fight to be who we are. And when that fight starts, as your parents have discovered, and as some of the people you probably met when you've been doing karate and you were in the wrong mood have discovered, that when that fight to be who we are starts, whatever age that is, there's no holding back, and we can either help or we can do damage. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground. And I think the trouble is this watch and wait, which is what Helen was referring to. When you were talking, Arthur, all I could picture is you picking your gold medal up at the Olympics and going, I'm glad I didn't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Before we finish, is there anything that you would like to say? Because there'll be lots and lots of people who are going to be listening to this. There'll be people who have trans people in their family. There will be people who've got friends who are trans, and there will also be people who have never met someone who's trans and is kind of just interested, or even maybe anti it. You never know. Is there anything that you would like to say to the people that are listening now?
Well, when I think now, when I'm transgender, but I don't think of myself as letting be. I'm obviously a transition from being a female to male, but I'm a male. You know what I mean? I don't tell someone, oh, I'm transgender and I'm Arthur. I wouldn't say that if I met someone. I'd say I'm Arthur because I am Arthur. If I'm thinking the term transgender, and I am transgender, and I've always been, but when I think about it, really, I'm just Arthur. That's who I identify as, Arthur.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you've enjoyed our programme today. Please go ahead and subscribe to future episodes if you haven't done so already. If you or anyone else have been affected by any of the things that we've talked about in our podcast today and you'd like to contact us, please visit our website Help Centre and contact us via there. We're very happy to accept ideas for future episodes and future guests, so let us know if there's anything specific you'd like us to cover. You can also visit our website gendergp.com for a multitude of information about transgender health and wellbeing issues. You can follow us on social media. ID is @GenderGP, and you can sign up to our monthly newsletter. Full details can be found in our show notes on our podcast page. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.